You know, in the 1970s, the junior lightweights, the lightweights, and the super lightweights were so good, it was hard to tell which fighter was going to win the key divisional battles because it was loaded with talent. You had the Verettes, you had Duran, you had De Jesus, you had Buchanan, you had all kind of top contenders. Sal Mambi was around. Jimmy Bivens, Antonio Cervantes, Alfonso Frazier, Ray Lampkin, Johnny Gant, and on and on and on. But Esteban de Jesus really stands out for me because not only was he smooth as silk, he was probably the only person that could keep out of Roberto Duran. Now, he fought 3 fights with Duran. He won the first non-title match, then lost the next 2 title contests. But it doesn't take away of anything from De Jesus' career. What took away De Jesus' career was the rough luck and the rough choices he made in life after boxing, which led to his premature death from HIV because of, aggressive drug use. Now, I'm not here to bury Esteban. He did enough in his life to cause the issues he suffered from. But at age 38, that's not a life. He could have been a trainer, he could have been an announcer, could have all done a bunch of good stuff, but he ended up at the end of his career like a total deception where he should have been, where Duran had gone on to higher weights and became a celebrity. De Jesus kind of fell into a pit he couldn't get out. Now, the pride of Puerto Rico, born in Carolina, was a gym mate of all people, Wilfred Benitez, an acquaintance of Benitez's mother, Clara. He was trained by Wilfredo's father and Clara's husband, Gregorio Benitez. He was the first boxer to defeat Roberto Duran as a pro, and the only fighter to defeat Duran during his lightweight reign, because, again, non-title. Now, the fight was fought at 140 pounds catch weight, so Duran's titles were not at stake, as the lightweight limit at that time was 135 pounds. And like I said, his career was mired in controversy, scandals, and massive problems with the law. We'll get into that very soon. Now, he debuted as a pro in 1969, beating El Tarita by a knockout in the 3rd round in San Juan. He won his first 20 fights, 13 by knockout, and then stepped up in class for the first time when he boxed future world title challenger Jose Marquez in 1971, beating him in a 10-round decision. His next fight was a 4th-round knockout victory over Victor Ortiz. After that, there was a rematch with Marquez, who was beaten again, this time over 12 rounds. Now, 5'4.5", small for his weight, but a good reach, 67 inches. And basically was a control expert in regards to stopping the power punches from hitting him. Now, when he started fighting international in Caracas, Venezuela, he took on future 4-time world title challenger Leonel Hernandez. De Jesus won the 10-round fight by a unanimous decision in what was the start of a 4-fight tour of Venezuela. That Venezuelan campaign ended with a 10-round decision loss against former world champion Antonio Gomez in Caracas. Now, 72 was again the big year of De Jesus' career. He won 6 fights in a row, including a 12-round knockout win in a 3rd fight with Marquez, and a 10-round decision over contender Doug McClendon. Despite all the wins, he was virtually unknown to most boxing fans. That changed quickly in his last fight of 1972. The undefeated new world lightweight champion Roberto Duran took him on at Madison Square Garden in a televised bout that drew huge ratings, and also marked the beginning of the Duran de Jesus trilogy, as it was called. De Jesus dropped Duran in round 1 and went on to inflict Duran's first defeat in a 10-round decision. Now, Duran's offense was not there against De Jesus. De Jesus was a protective fighter. He would never again take the major power shots, especially in the first 30 seconds and the last 30 seconds of a round. Now, in 73, he moved up in the rankings yet again, receiving a chance to challenge Ray Lampkin for the NABF lightweight belt. He won the vacant title by beating Duran's future challenger in a 12-round decision. He then went on to beat contenders Johnny Gant and Raul Montoya in 10-round decisions, and also defeated Lampkin by decision in a rematch in New York. He finished 1973 with a big first-round knockout over contender Al Foster. Now, he began 1974 by knocking out former junior welterweight champion, the Peppermint Man, Alfonso Frazier, in 10 rounds in San Juan, after which he traveled to Panama City to receive his first world title shot, and at the same time, faced Duran in the second fight of their trilogy. He once again dropped Duran in round 1, but this time Duran rebounded and dominated the fight, retaining his title in an 11-round knockout. He recovered from the defeat with 2 more wins before the end of the year. Now, in 75, he went up in weight briefly, and after beating Jesse Lara by knockout in 3, he returned to Panama City to challenge Antonio Cervantes for the world's junior welterweight title, losing a close 15-round decision. He then defeated Ruby Barros by knockout in round 5 to end that year, and started 1976 by defeating Valentin Ramos by knockout in the second round. Now, next came his third world title try when the WBC's world lightweight champion Ishimatsu Suzuki of Japan traveled to Puerto Rico to defend his title against De Jesus. The third time proved to be a charm for De Jesus, who won the world title by beating Suzuki in a 15-round decision. He then retained the title against Hector Medina with a knockout in round 7. Now, unfortunately, this is where the negatives came in. De Jesus was starting to develop a drug problem and admitted to publicly using drugs during his boxing career. He began using cocaine and heroin early in his career with an older brother, Enrique. Now, by 1977, he retained the big title against Buzza Yamabi by knockout in round 6, and against Vincent Mijares Saldivar by knockout in round 11. Now, 1978, which was one of the biggest years of boxing in the decade, began with the third and final chapter of his trilogy with Duran, and a title unification bout in LA, which displayed Duran at the peak of his power. Duran systematically broke down De Jesus, resulting in a 12-round knockout. Now, check out the YouTube of that immensely busy fight. But Duran was a much better fighter that night, and he learned from the first 2 fights against De Jesus what De Jesus' weaknesses were, and the fact that Duran clogged up all the De Jesus' interpretations of Duran's openings. Now, De Jesus did rebound with 3 wins before the end of the year, including one over former world title challenger, Edwin Verrett, who the Verrett brothers were big on Duran's radar at the time. Now, in 79, he had 2 more wins, including one over Jimmy Blevins. Now, after beating Jose Vallejo by a knockout round 7 in San Juan to start 1980, he traveled to Bloomington, Minnesota to challenge Sal Mamby for Mamby's WBC World Junior Welterweight title, which was a major supporting event of the Larry Holmes Scott Ledoux World Heavyweight undercard. In what turned out to be his last fight, he was beaten by a knockout in 13 rounds. His record ended up 57-5 with 32 wins by knockout. Now, the negative of his career, we have to get into this because it's a big part why he's not around anymore. Now, on November 27, 1980, in what became a famous case in Puerto Rico, after having injected himself with cocaine, De Jesus was involved in a traffic dispute with 17-year-old Roberto Cintron Gonzalez, which ended in De Jesus fatally shooting Gonzalez in the head. De Jesus was sentenced to life in prison. While incarcerated, he excelled in another sport, baseball, making the Puerto Rico penal system all-star team 3 times. In 84, he gave his life to the Lord and became a born-again Christian and started to turn his life around, becoming a preacher. However, in 1985, he learned that his brother Enrique, with whom he had shared needles, had died of AIDS. De Jesus tested positive for the virus, and the symptoms began to appear. After it became public knowledge that De Jesus had acquired HIV and had become a sufferer of AIDS, Governor Rafael Hernandez Colon commuted his sentence. Now, after returning to spend his last days with his family, De Jesus was visited by many celebrities, including Orlando Cepeda, the great baseball Hall of Famer, salsa music superstar Chio Feliciano, and of course his old nemesis Roberto Duran. Duran, upon visiting his old rival, hugged and kissed De Jesus and told his daughter to do the same. The event was witnessed by former champion and writer Jose Torres, who said he was amazed to see Duran's compassionate gesture as he lifted De Jesus out of his bed and hugged him at a time when so little was known and so much was feared about AIDS. Esteban died 1 month later after being released at the age of 37. Now, there's many photos and write-ups about the Duran de Jesus, as we call it, the farewell situation. Duran said in published reports he always respected de Jesus because he said you must respect somebody that is better than you, and he said I learned much by fighting him, and he said I always thought we were friends. And I don't think Duran was going there to pad his own nest, because at the time he had gone through a lot of tough fights, and I think he really missed fighting de Jesus. But at the age of 37, he could have given so much to boxing, but just bad decisions, and drugs will set you crazy if abused, as we say. So Esteban de Jesus, I consider him a top 10 lightweight of the 1970s and 80s, in my personal opinion. I saw many of his fights. Boys, what a smooth cat. You look at the later fighters like Oscar De La Hoya, you look at Floyd Mayweather Jr., you look at Prince Nassim Hamed. He had that beautiful style where whatever was in front of him, if he could hit it, he was going to build up the points. So you had to show much skill to hold him off, because he had just like Ali in the heavyweights, he had some knockout power, but the combination of blows, he would rarely have a one-punch knockout. But imagine to beat Duran in his prime at the time. From the 1970s, only one person could beat Duran. That was himself. This guy took on Sugar Ray Leonard 5 years past his prime and bet him in Montreal when Leonard was technically the king shit of the boxing division. So pretty weird. So I really miss Esteban de Jesus. I wish he had came in on a comeback, but like I said, just bad decisions. And Puerto Rico loves Esteban, and Esteban loved Puerto Rico. That's all I can say. Thanks for listening. Bye.